On this week's show, the Georgia Southern men's basketball team remaining on top in Sun Belt play with 2 big victories on the road. We'll have highlights. We'll also take you to Georgia Southern women and Coastal Carolina. All that and more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest. And welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm your host, Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, who'd have thought? I think we all thought Georgia Southern basketball was going to take a step forward, but who'd have thought they'd be on top, undefeated this late in the season? Everything seems to be going their way, and they've needed defense. They've showed up with defense. When they've needed to crash the boards and draw fouls, they've been able to do that. And to go on the road and sweep in Louisiana, it doesn't happen very often. They just got done doing that. Your thoughts on where the Georgia Southern men's program is right now?
Well, I think it's a sign of a winning team when you look back at how this team has come to be a couple of years ago. They make it the whole way to the conference championship game in the tournament, but they mostly were piecing it together with a couple shots here and there and a good, solid defensive team. Then last year, they've got to do a total rebuild. They're playing with mostly freshmen and a couple sophomores, and you see flashes of the offense coming around. There were some days where the shots were falling. They could run people off the floor. There were some days where they didn't fall. Things looked a little bit ugly, and now I think this year you're seeing everything come full circle. The defense is back up to the level that Coach Mark Byington wants it at. The shots, when they fall from deep, it's still a little streaky, but they're as hot shooting as ever when they get going, and now they've developed a little bit more offensive production from the forwards. You've got guys like Lake Smith who can fearlessly drive the lane, and they're just coming up with more and more ways to beat teams. And when you've got that versatility and the overall talent that the Eagles have, there's not a whole lot of pages to go to in a defensive playbook to stop them.
Well, we've mentioned that they're buying into the Byington's system, but it's also, I think, the roles are becoming, you're pretty much seeing people's roles right now on the team, and Tukey and Ike are out there scoring points. If Ike's outside shot's not falling, he's going to take it to the goal. Tukey can do both of those things as well. He can hit outside, he can do that. Jake Alsmiller is now being counted on more for a few threes here and there, not to score 15 or 16 points in a game. And then you've got the guys like Mike Hughes, who we thought may have taken that next step, and instead, maybe his role this year is to make the big shots. Maybe not is so 16 to 20 points a game, but maybe 13, 14, and some key shots in the fourth. And you mentioned Monte Glenn. You got Coy Simmons, who's coming off an injury. And then you've got Sean O'Connell also coming off the bench and hitting some points and hitting some rebounds as well. So you've got a little bit more of an identity.
And I think that they've got those roles. They're settling into them. They're playing well together. These guys, you'll remember everybody coming back from last year, the exception being B.J. Gladden, the only real newcomer who's getting minutes this season. So everybody's very comfortable with what each other can do. They know what the game plan is going to look like from the first half to the second half to crunch time. And while they do have their roles, the other thing that I think Coach Byington's really happy about is their ability to play positionless basketball, is what he always likes to say. And you've got guys who can play 2, 3, even 4 different positions, whether it's in the offensive half-court set or set up in defense. And when you can do that and guys still know the role that they're expected to play on the team, you've got a lot of options, especially when you listed off all those names. And this is as deep of a bench that the Eagles have had in quite some time.
So they go on the road. We thought they could split in Louisiana, maybe defeat Monroe and lose to Lafayette. Lafayette came in, I think they were 12-4 on the season. You go into their place and beat them fairly handedly, and Georgia Southern was a 9-point underdog in that game. And then to turn around, and those Monday games are pretty tough because you've got the Saturday and a quick turnaround to the Monday games. So it seems to be those are the games that you're seeing them bog down and have to count a little bit more on defense and being able to maybe not have your legs under you and make as many threes.
Yeah, very impressive win at the Cajun Dome, probably one of the biggest home court advantages in the entire Sun Belt. The Eagles owe for their first 2 trips out there in Sun Belt play the last couple of seasons, and They fall behind early, but they battle back, they stick around, and then they get on a little bit of a run, and they're able to take down the Cajuns. A huge win there. A lot of people, you mentioned the 9-point spread, probably had it chalked up as a loss. And then that trap game, I guess you could say, UL Monroe, you had 2 days to feel good about yourself, but you're still a long ways from home, and UL Monroe hadn't won a conference game. They come out shooting hot. They start filling it up. They look up, the Eagles do, early in the second half, down 16 points. They haven't seen a deficit like that since the Minnesota game, but give them credit. It seemed a lot like the Savannah State game, where Savannah State just couldn't miss in the first half, but the Eagles didn't panic. They kept playing their game. Their shots started to fall. ULM all of a sudden went cold, and they were right there to take the game away in the final minutes.
All right, well, without further ado, let's get out and see some highlights from Lafayette and Monroe. The Georgia Southern women on the road at Lafayette. The Eagles' Patrice Butler hits the three early on. Georgia Southern out to an early lead. The Raging Cajuns will come back after back-to-back threes from the Eagles. Nakia Jones buries this one and then hits another. And then how about three straight? A 25-3 run for Lafayette. Jalen Gordon will feel it as well. She hits the long three. The Cajuns hit 8 from beyond the arc. And they'd go on to take this one by a final count of 79-52. Former Effingham County star Jay Wright in action as the Raging Cajuns hosting Georgia Southern in the guys game. He'd feel it early on with the three, then later he dished this one to Bryce Washington, who throws it down with authority. Cajuns up by 6 at the half. Georgia Southern will make a big run in the second half, though. The top two scorers in the Sun Belt doing their thing. Ike Smith going strong to the hole. Then it's Tukey Brown with the three-pointer. Georgia Southern as big as a 10-point lead in the second half. Smith continues to go off for the Eagles. He have 28 points. The Cajuns start to head for the door. Jonathan Stove trying to keep them in it, but the Eagles 22 of 26 from the line. U of L only 4 of 9, and the Cajuns fall 81-76. Monday, Georgia Southern on the road at UL Monroe. The Warhawks with the early lead. Jean-Pierre Martin with 2 of his 18, 26-21 ULM at the half. Second half, Monroe tries to pull away. Martin 3 more. The Eagles will answer with Mike Hughes, 3 of his 13 points. More from the Warhawks, the loose ball, the fast break. Marcus Washington will finish in traffic, but the Eagles are able to come back from a 16-point deficit in the second half. Hughes for 3. Next, Tukey Brown will catch fire as he hits a couple of three-pointers. He'd finish with a game-high 19 points. And the Eagles will come back to win this one by a final count of 62-60. Well, next up for the guys, they had the doubleheader with Appalachian State on Saturday, and then they turn around and play Coastal Carolina on Monday. As for the women, this past week they won this last Thursday game. They beat Monroe and then turned around and lost a pretty big blowout to Lafayette. They've got Coastal. We're about to look at some of the highlights, but your thoughts on where the women are right now?
Well, I think that they just really needed that first conference win. Not very many of them. You look at 3 and 4 win performances in conference play the last couple of years. UL Monroe definitely one of their better chances to get a win. They'll have another crack at them in Statesboro later this season, so hopefully they can plug up another one there. But you've also got the games that slipped away. You look at Georgia State, South Alabama. Those are winnable games. I think the ladies had to prove to themselves that they could win one, and yeah, they probably aren't at the level of the top of the conference, even though they did give Troy a good game. But it's all about winning the winnable ones, giving you the confidence, maybe even getting you a little bit better of a matchup seeding-wise, looking at who they might play in the tournament.
All right, well, let's get out and see some highlights of Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina. Battle of the Birds, Georgia Southern Eagles hosting Coastal Carolina's Chanticleers in a women's matchup. Thursday, the Eagles with a hot start. Patrice Butler for 2, Angel McGowan then from behind the arc for 3. Nicole Franks getting in on the fun. The Eagles 6 of 17 from behind the arc. Coastal down 11 but cutting into the lead with 3 themselves. But the Eagles in control. McGowan 3 more of her game-high 21 points. Next, the nice look inside to Jessica Marcus for 2. The Eagles back up by 11. Back inside we go. Butler 2 more of her 20 points in the game. More from Butler. She powers up for 2 more. Frank showing some good penetration here as she hits for 2 more of her 15 in the game. And finally, it's Amira Atwater penetrating for 2 as the Eagles win this one 78-70. All right, so next up for the women, they're the first of the doubleheader, 2 o'clock on Saturday against Appalachian State. The guys taking place Saturday at 5. Well, that'll wrap things up for now. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us. I hope to see you again next week.